Imagine standing in a crowded room, feeling a quiet urge inside you. You look around, hoping someone will notice your presence and give you a bit of praise or acceptance. That tiny voice in your head says, "I wish they would tell me I'm good enough." This longing for validation can feel like a constant tug, almost like you're begging for approval from people you barely know. Robert Greene reminds us that relying on others' views of our worth can become a trap. It keeps us from discovering our true power and stops us from shaping our own path. Think about how often we chase compliments or kind words. We might change our opinions just to fit in, or hold back our true thoughts so we don't upset anyone. We might agree with ideas that go against our gut simply because we crave that nod of acceptance. This habit can take root when we're young. We want our parents, teachers, or friends to see the good in us. As we grow older, the desire for approval can become stronger. We hope a boss, a partner, or even strangers on social media will confirm we're on the right track. It's so easy to let the world's reactions steer our choices. We all need some connection with others, but when that need turns into chasing approval, we risk giving away our freedom and self-respect. Robert Greene's view on self-reliance asks us to look deeper into how much power we hand over when we beg for validation. Whenever we hold out our hands for another person's approval, we are basically saying they get to define our value. We surrender a piece of our independence because we place them in control of our worth. Greene suggests shifting our focus. Instead of waiting for someone's permission to feel good about ourselves, we should build an inner voice of certainty. When we rely on that inner voice, we aren't easily swayed by the highs and lows of people's opinions. This path to self-reliance doesn't mean ignoring everyone else or pretending you don't need people. Rather, it's about building a stronger foundation within. People's praise or criticism will still matter, but it won't dominate your thoughts. You become aware of your own direction, so you don't feel lost when someone fails to applaud you. The sense of self-worth that grows inside you is not something that can be taken away by a negative comment or a moment of rejection. It might seem scary at first to let go of external validation. Many of us have no idea who we are without someone else's stamp of approval. But Greene reminds us that this fear is a sign we've been giving too much credit to other people's opinions. If you can work through that fear, you come to realize you never needed constant applause in the first place. You discover that your talents and strengths exist, whether or not someone tells you they do. You start taking action based on what you know you must do, instead of waiting for others to tell you it's okay to do it. One of the most powerful shifts we can make is to measure success in our own terms. That means defining what matters to us before the world tells us what should matter. Maybe you want to master a skill, start a business, or create a piece of art. The world might not pay attention at first. You could face moments of doubt when you wonder if it's worth it without the applause. But when you set a personal standard for success, you free yourself from the ups and downs of external praise. You won't drop a dream just because the crowd isn't clapping. Instead, you stay loyal to your vision because it belongs to you, not to anyone else. Greene also points out that when we move through life seeking approval, we place ourselves in a vulnerable position. People who sense this need can use it against us. They might praise us just enough to keep us obedient, or try to withhold approval to make us feel small. This can lead us into unhealthy relationships or unfair work situations. By developing self-reliance, we protect ourselves. We stop being easy targets for manipulation. Instead, we become more balanced in our interactions because we aren't desperate for a pat on the back. We can enjoy support and encouragement from others, but we don't collapse if it's missing. Another benefit of self-reliance is genuine connection with people. It sounds like a paradox, but when we're not begging for approval, we form healthier bonds. Instead of clinging to others in the hope of hearing, "You're good enough," we stand on our own feet. That creates respect in relationships. People sense that you're comfortable in your own skin, and they tend to respond with admiration rather than pity. When you bring confidence to the table, you're seen as someone who can inspire others instead of a person who always needs a boost. Learning self-reliance isn't something that happens in a day. It's a process that begins with awareness. Start noticing when you're adjusting your words or actions just to make someone like you. Ask yourself if their approval really matters more than your own sense of purpose. If you're doing something only to get applause, you might be ignoring a deeper calling. Each time you catch yourself seeking validation, take a step back and ask, what do I really want here? This small moment of self-check can help break the cycle. Greene's teachings also encourage self-reflection. We can gain confidence in our unique strengths by spending time learning about ourselves. That could involve journaling, studying what you genuinely love, and facing your fears. The aim is to build a truthful image of who you are, so you're not at the mercy of every passing opinion. The more time you invest in knowing and improving yourself, the less you'll feel the urge to chase compliments. You'll see your worth in the effort you put forth and the growth that takes place within you. Embracing mistakes is another part of this journey. Begging for validation often comes from trying to appear flawless. We fear judgment if we fail. But if you observe the life stories of successful individuals, you'll see they faced many failures along the way. They learned to rely on themselves, to keep moving even when no one else believed in them. That internal drive pushed them forward when the world's applause was nowhere to be found. Your missteps don't define you unless you allow other people's reactions to overshadow your lessons. Instead, see failures as stepping stones. By doing so, you free yourself from obsessing over how people might judge you because you're focused on what you're learning in the process. An important lesson in self-reliance is understanding that outside validation is temporary. People's opinions are fickle. You could be praised one day and ignored the next. If your self-worth is tied to that praise, you'll always be up and down like a ship tossed by waves. Developing an internal anchor means you remain steady regardless of who's cheering. You learn to trust yourself, which is far more valuable than a moment of applause. Robert Greene also highlights the power of self-belief for creativity. When you rely on others for validation, you might censor your ideas. You play it safe, hoping not to lose people's approval. But creativity blooms when you're free to explore ideas that might be risky or misunderstood at first. That creative spark often leads to breakthroughs and achievements that stand out. If you can trust in yourself, you'll dare to walk unfamiliar paths, test new methods, and shape your own unique style. You might not get applause right away, but the fulfillment you get from staying true to your vision can be far greater. In everyday life, self-reliance brings calm. Picture the stress that comes from always wondering, do they like me? Do they think I'm good at what I do? Replacing that stress with an inner sense of certainty is life-changing. You begin to notice your own small victories, appreciate your growth, and find a sense of purpose that doesn't depend on applause. You also start taking on more responsibilities, not because you want approval, but because you trust your ability to handle challenges. This shift in mindset can open doors to new opportunities that you might have avoided if you were focused on pleasing the crowd. When you stop begging for validation, something else interesting happens. You develop a more grounded humility. People often mistake the search for approval as humility, but it's actually a form of vanity. Real humility is grounded in self-awareness and the acceptance of your strengths and weaknesses. You don't need constant compliments because you already know what you bring to the table, and you also know the areas where you can improve. This clarity helps you avoid arrogance because you're not feeding off the crowd's cheers, you're rooted in reality. The end goal is an inner peace that fuels your outer accomplishments. Self-reliance is not about building a wall around yourself or ignoring the world. It's about standing firm and knowing that with or without applause, you have a purpose and a direction. This is what makes you truly powerful. It gives you the space to grow, to innovate, and to connect with others from a place of honesty rather than need. Take a moment to imagine how your life could change if you were driven by your own inner compass. You would invest your time in what truly matters to you. Explore your own ideas without fear of rejection and stand tall when people doubt you. This sense of personal strength doesn't just improve your life, but also inspires those around you. Instead of adding to the chorus of people begging for a pat on the back, you become an example of what it means to trust yourself and act from conviction. This is the essence of Robert Greene's approach. Break free from the grip of external validation and learn to rely on yourself. The first step is noticing when your need for approval is holding you back. Then, take small steps every day to turn your focus inward, defining success and value in your own terms. Over time, you'll see a shift in how you view yourself and your goals. You'll find a deeper sense of purpose, a steadiness in the face of challenges, and a freedom that comes from living life based on who you truly are, and that is the heart of self-reliance.